20th century, it was difficult to understand unless you are a literature student. And even if you're a literature student, it is still difficult to understand because some of the vocabulary he uses is no longer used in that fashion. Some of the words actually mean something else completely. So these are problems that we face. That's why always we have to take the help of annotations, notes that explain various references. At the same time, you must also realize that while he was writing this 400 years back, this language would have been understandable to his own people. We were talking about this last time, remember? Uh, he was not writing for the elites, the aristocrats, the monarchy. He was writing for everyone. So this was a language that everybody could follow. If they couldn't have followed, he would not have become so popular, obviously.
I
Right?
could read only, I just read some 15, 20 pages or so,
Yeah.
and yeah, and I could not follow properly,
Yeah.
and
So
I felt it's grammatically different from the language we speak
yeah.
generally.
Completely different because you see, this is Renaissance. I mean, remember 400 years back, huh? Just think of Hindi. Think of Hindi 400 years ago and what it is now. You would have difficulty following a lot of it. So the same kind of principle applies, which is why maybe actually I should have made this point more clearly. I think it's better if you see a good film. If you see a good film version, you'll get, at least you'll figure out what's happening, the storyline, the development, because the character understands it, the actor understands his character, right? So he's giving you everything in his expressions itself. Right. The other problem is that because it is poetry, it is written in verse. So when that happens, the writer often has these changing position of words within the verse to fit the meter. The poetic line often deals with interchanging, changeability of position within a line. So that can complicate the understanding, true. Hmm. But he is not doing this deliberately. He is wanting to get across, and he did get across to his full audience, popular audience. Yeah. So my advice is to see a movie and get what you can, and maybe see two versions. For faithful version, like I would say BBC plus Kenneth Branagh. Hmm. And then, of course, Laurence Olivier is there; it's readily available. So, did any of you get to see any of these movies? Yeah, Shushmita.
Yeah, I saw the Laurence Olivier one because that's the one I had not seen. I told you,
Hmm.
right? And so the Kenneth Branagh one I saw many years ago when I was a graduate student. It was there as in the DVD collection of the university.
Hmm. Hmm.
So basically, they had it in parts.
Hmm.
So that's how I see the Kenneth Branagh long ago. But the Laurence Olivier one is the one that I saw after we spoke, like last Tuesday.
Hmm. Hmm.
So yeah, also, I mean, I should say I had Hamlet in my plus two. We used the compendium text of Arden, taught by one and only Anjana Shaha. So
Okay.
she gave remarkable notes,
Yeah.
and since then I've seen a few other Shakespearean plays and so on. So yes, it is a lot getting used to, and especially and even, sir, I would like to add that even if you watch a theater production or even a film where you can pause and rewind things, still, because these lines have to be said in a certain rhythm, it takes, I think, for now, if I were to watch any film, like it will take about 4 or 5 minutes to just sort of get into the back,
Yes.
especially the use of thou, shalt, and the, placement of words in the normal grammar. So I think it's just a matter of watching a few and getting acclimatized to that
Yeah.
language.
Yeah.
That's
And you have an advantage. That's very clear because you studied the play, so you actually know. I mean, supposedly you know what every line means, but at least you've
yes,
been led through it by a good teacher, so that
yes,
helps.
yes,
Anybody else
exactly.
has any immediate questions, any immediate inquiries? Adrija, Yash, Shudeep. Yeah. Okay. Then let me proceed this way. First, let me tell you a little bit about the background. What is very interesting is that while we assume, and this is a correct assumption, that from the Renaissance onwards, we are watching original stories, hmm, stories that are being invented, created by the authors. At the same time, what we must also accept equally is that Hamlet's story was known to Shakespeare's audience. Okay, so we are actually getting a repeat of what we have already seen with Oedipus and with Shakuntala, which is that the author relies on um, an assumption he is making of the knowledge of the basic storyline within the audience. The audience knows about this. How do we know about this? Because obviously Hamlet is actually, the storyline is there. It's a myth in Norse. You know, Norse mythology, Norse legend, like Scandinavian legendary stories. It is there in Scandinavian legends. But how am I saying that Shakespeare's audience knew it? You see, we know for a fact that there was a very popular play on the same story, possibly in the 1580s, performed in London, right? And it was possibly written by one of we've referred to the university wits. Remember last time? The university educated dramatists. Marlowe was the chief one among them. Hmm. One of them, possibly, we don't know who it was. Maybe it was Kyd, Kyd, but we don't know for sure, wrote this original Hamlet. Hmm. So, Shakespeare is completely banking on the knowledge that his audience knows this storyline. Okay, so he can actually go into the intricacies, the subtleties of the relationships, and of course, contributing a lot of his original thoughts, developments, uh, plot uh, tweaks here and there, movement here and there, away from the storyline, but based on this pre-existing knowledge. Um, the In Shakespeare's scholarship, this play, which has not survived, lost, is known as the UR, Ur Hamlet. Ur means kind of original. It's an obscure literary word, and it can be prefixed, added in front of anything, any word to signify original, archetypical, the first. Okay, Ur Hamlet. Yeah, Yash, were you saying something?
Yes, just that it's not the Ur Hamlet, because the Ur Hamlet would be the mythology in the sense that you
Yes,
said it,
yes, yes,
or the
correct.
Spanish tragedy. There was a
Yeah,
Spanish text.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
No, the
also, is that
obviously the original storyline is Norse legend, but as far as England is concerned, there is this Ur Hamlet play text which we haven't got, which has not come down to us. Okay, yeah.
sorry? Quick question. Just
Spanish tragedy, by the way, is by Thomas Kidd. It belongs to this genre, but we'll talk about this genre a little later on. Yeah, carry on.
I
Yeah,
was just wondering if you or if anyone in the class can think of a modern analog for this situation, because very interesting to think about. You have a cross cultural adaptation or a cross cultural borrowing in a sense with the university wit who wrote the original, and then you have the more popular playwright actually affording himself the opportunity to use the storyline to get into nitty gritties.
yeah,
You would imagine getting into nitty gritties being the territory of the university wit.
yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, if I don't know why, but I wonder if there's a modern analog and
Yeah,
what that
there
could.
are, but you threw the question up to everybody. So does anyone have a nice example of this? Something from another culture, which is taken into, let's say, our culture or a particular culture, and then makes a mark itself.
Okay, you know what? I'm just going to say something that will. Okay, I guess every Romeo Juliet has inspired. I don't know how many
I was
plays of
actually
that.
thinking of that. I was exactly thinking of that. Yeah, carry
So
on.
I mean, I didn't want to say that because it's like such a low hanging fruit. I was trying to think of something more, but this is probably the genius of Shakespeare, that he takes something which is supposed to be intellectual and deep, and then digs a whole other level, several levels to it, and presents it in a way which is actually mass consumable, right?
Yeah.
That's the beauty. But so yeah, I guess the Romeo, any version, he Ranja, meaning like just think of all the various versions of Romeo and Juliet that exist all across the world. So
Yeah,
yeah.
but one problem there is that Hiranja is not Romeo and Juliet.
Okay.
Hiranja
Okay.
belongs to its own. It has its own
It,
origins.
oh, I see. I see. So
Yeah,
it's not okay. It's not a.
it's
But
not
I.
a take. Yeah, it's not a takeoff. I mean, it has obviously there can be plot similarities in terms of the basic issue in such a tragedy is that both the lovers die or one lover dies or whatever,
Exactly.
So that can happen in any culture, but that is not a Romeo and Juliet transfer. Hiranja, Laila
Tony.
Majnu, all these are
Yeah.
kind of Asian, several of them actually Asian, Middle Eastern, Northwest Indian, they're the Persian, they're all these stories come from.
Okay,
Okay.
I guess Faustus would be one example. I mean, I don't know. Like, did Goethe do it first, or did Christopher Marlowe do it first? I don't know the chronology, but I mean,
No,
Faustus
this
has
is it's a very good example, absolutely, because the original, again, we have the same word, Ur,
or
Ur
yes,
Faust.
yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
again, the Faust story is there in Europe,
Mm.
very
Very,
old times, but
very,
it's adopted by various people. There
yes.
was probably an Ur Faust, we don't know where, and then Christopher Marlowe came along, and later on Goethe also came along. So it's been developed. So these things do happen. Yeah, yeah. Is that all right then, Yash? I mean, you can also have such. I mean, you might think that it's the same culture, but it's actually not, because when you're talking about Romeo and Juliet, and you think of, let's say, something like West Side Story. Okay, that's an adaptation. Hmm. Clearly, also, it is kind of it has taken the entire Romeo and Juliet storyline, but this is an audience which of film goers who may not have known too much about the original Shakespeare play, right? And it's making its own impact. It's all virtually becoming an original work in its own right.
Right. So I guess just to continue, but Romeo and Juliet has been adapted as an opera as
Yeah,
well as a ballet, right? So
yeah,
those stories are very true to the real of
mm,
Shakespeare. But of course, they compress a lot of things because they can't possibly, especially with the ballet. So,
yeah,
but they are very honest. I mean, the classical ballet, I think Balanchine ballet, it's very completely. I guess that's a much closer example than the Hiranjan, or because
yeah,
the story is honest. But I don't think they dig the they don't unpeel the layers the way Shakespeare does for Hamlet. So
yeah,
they are
yeah,
not good
yeah,
examples, I guess, in
yeah,
that way.
yeah. By the way, if you want to see that particular ballet version, you should. Romeo and Juliet. That's with Nureyev and Margot Fontaine. Hmm.
My God, so, yeah, is that available on YouTube? I have to check.
I
I
don't know
saw.
about YouTube, but yeah, it was made into a film. There is a film of it.
I
So
see.
all you dancers should watch it.
Definitely,
It's just completely wondrous. It's amazing. Hmm. But
I'll
here, of
watch.
course, because it's dance, it's completely relying on the audience's knowledge, pre-existing knowledge of the story. There is no text because ballet doesn't have any text. So it's completely a physical interpretation, almost it's not mime, of course, but a physical interpretation of the storyline. Yeah. So this is happening, interestingly enough, in Hamlet too. Reliance on a previous play, and how the originality, therefore, is is measured by how you have departed from it, just like Sophocles did, just like Kalidasa did, and now, of course, Shakespeare did in his marvelous way. So there is that. There is then the entire matter of the texts. Let me explain that as briefly as possible. There are three texts of, meaning printed books of Hamlet that are available. In 1603 came what we know as the first quarto, Quarto. Now, this word is a technical word, quarto, but basically it's a terminology from publishing, printing and publishing. Okay. It's actually, it defines the size of the paper which is folded and then printed upon. All right. So don't bother too much about that. The size of the book, therefore, is more like the standard kind of books you have today. It's a uh, handy sort of book that you can open out just like any book you have today. That was the first quarto of 1603. Uh, this is happening most likely after the play has already been staged. Okay, contrary to what happens nowadays, very often, for instance, texts are actually printed and then they are staged. In Shakespeare's time, they would not do that at all because the entire issue of piracy, in terms of publishing piracy, was big, was a major problem. Okay, although there was a certain idea of copyright and who owns what, but you could not actually impose the enforce those rules. So once a book is out, nobody could stop the next, let's say, playhouse, the rival playhouse or anyone else, from taking the book and doing their own show of the play. So a company would resist printing a play that they were doing as long as they could. Only once the play had more or less fallen out of circulation, in terms of it was either no longer being staged, or it was declining in box office, then you could make some more out of the play by selling it, printing it and selling it, the book. Okay. So the first quarto, or quarto 1, in 1603 is a very strange kettle of fish. It has some similarity with the later versions, but on the other hand, a lot of it, more than half of it, seems to have no resemblance to later texts, which are considered to be more authoritative texts. Yes, Shushmita? Yeah,
Sorry. Yes. So I wanted to ask, given how low literacy rate was back in then,
yeah.
what would be the commercial viable reason to publish a book? It would be much better to just stage it and keep the novelty. Like, you have to come here to watch it, right?
Yeah, yeah. No, but as I said, once that has outlived its purpose, the stageability factor,
I
then
see.
comes in the book, right? So you
Okay.
begin to sell the book. Let's say, Hamlet is a big hit. Romeo and Juliet was Shakespeare's biggest hit. We know this. We know this for a fact. So automatically, people would want to, who could read, you're right, literacy was not so high, but those who could read, who were reading Shakespeare's sonnets as well, would want to, and have seen Romeo and Juliet, would want to have a copy of this wonderful tragedy that they had seen.
Right. Collection
Right?
type. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So that's how it worked. So the uh, the first quarto, a lot of scholars have come to this wonderful conclusion that it was actually a pirate edition. Some publisher, because of Hamlet's popularity, some publisher decided to make a quick buck, a very fast buck, by catching hold of the actor who doubled in the roles of Marcellus and Lucianus, possibly even Voldemort in the play, because those are the parts that are almost verbatim intact in quarto 1. Okay. And then the rest of the play, these guys and maybe some other person who had attended the show sometime or the other, they reconstructed from memory. Can you believe it?
Hmm.
Hmm. As much as possible, they reconstructed from memory, and they had faulty memories. Somebody's speeches are more accurate than others. Some are completely improvised, but more or less they got the storyline going, and they printed it, making a fast buck. Okay, this is one theory. The other theory, which is the one that I prefer, because I guess I'm more of a theater person, is that quarter one came from a version of Hamlet that was traveling in the provinces, traveling outside London. Very often, for instance, the London theatres had to shut down for plague, mainly for plague. Okay, there are major outbreaks of plague during this time, as some of you, uh, I think we had this very brief discussion earlier on. And when that happened, obviously, the first thing, you know what happened with coronavirus. The first thing that are closed down are any large assembly gatherings, etc. Shut them down completely. Hmm? So automatically, these people like Lord Chamberlain's men, King's men, out of work, completely no money. So what do? They pack up everything or whatever they can get and go off traveling. Have you have jatra convoys and stuff like that through the villages, through the countryside, going from town to town, doing their plays. Hmm. Now, this could not necessarily have been Shakespeare's company. It could have been done by just, as I said, that one actor who has clearly remembered all his lines with some other actors that were assembled, because it could be a ragtag, a motley group of people who are going out of London to perform. Hmm. Hamlet's a popular play, so let's do it. Let's catch this guy. He's ready and willing. Let's take him along. Okay. And then after that, they go to the printer and say that, okay, we've done this, it seemed to be working, and there's no printed edition of Hamlet so far anywhere. So why don't we kind of, you give us some money, we'll do it for you. We'll verbally reconstruct the entire production for you. Okay. So that's an interesting way of concluding that it is not the first quarter is not a complete fake, and it's not a total piracy, though it could have been that. That was option one. Option two is that it was actual production, of which you are therefore getting the performance text. It's garbled, it's warped, it's not complete, it's no, by no means in any way correct, perhaps, but a lot of it is genuine, and therefore it gives you some sense of the traveling productions in Shakespeare's time, um, in this case, particularly Hamlet. Yes, Vijayalakshmi.
Uh, yeah. So when you said Ur Hamlet,
Yeah.
so is it so that Ur Hamlet did not have the mention of ghost in it?
Yes, the ghosts were very important. Okay,
Uh,
I'll come to the ghosts a little later on. Everybody in
okay.
Shakespeare's in Elizabethan England, everybody believed in ghosts. Hmm? Hence,
No, no.
when
What I meant is
yeah,
that the original story of Hamlet did not have ghost in it, and
the original
Shakespeare
story when in
and
Norse,
Shakespeare, yeah, sort of.
are you
I
talking
mean,
about the
that's
original
what.
legend?
Yeah, original Hamlet did not have the mention of ghost in it. In Shakespearean version, there is a mention of ghost because Shakespeare adapted it from some other writer who introduced ghost in the play, and from there Shakespeare
No,
adapted
so
that.
that's what we were talking about. Ur Hamlet.
Yeah,
We are talking about Ur Hamlet, which is the kind of model from which Shakespeare is taking off. Hmm. Now, your question is an interesting one, because then I will actually have to go back to Norse legend to find out if there is a ghost over there. Have
yeah.
you
There's
done some reading already?
yeah, I didn't read the whole thing, the whole introductory part and all. I just read those few lines where it was mentioned that the original Hamlet did not have the mention of ghost.
Okay, fine.
Later, yeah, later one of the writer
Hmm.
mentioned ghost in his play, and from him Shakespeare adapted the
That
mention of
writer,
ghost and
that writer
the.
is the Ur Hamlet writer.
Okay.
Okay, but still, because you have aroused my curiosity now, I will go back to the Norse legend and find out about the ghost storyline.
Okay.
Anyway, the Ur Hamlet introduces, and then Shakespeare carries on this ghost, because the ghosts are big time in Shakespeare. Everybody believed in ghosts at that time, and witches in Macbeth, etc., etc. They were real. They were not fantastic creatures, etc. Okay, so this is quarter one. Hmm. And next comes along quarter two. This is from 1604. Some of the quarter twos are actually dated to 1605. So within a year. Hmm. Now, this, as you will understand, the appearance of the first quarter must have hit Shakespeare's company hard. Hmm. Because it was not authorized by them. They wouldn't have done it. This is eating into their sales. So, as quickly as possible, bring out the good text, the full text. That is what the second quarto is, from 1604/1605. Okay, so when you are reading your Hamlet today, most of the editors are going to quarto two. It appears to, and by the way, Shakespeare editors are so good at their work, they can actually tell, it seems, where the manuscript was from, where did the printed text actually originate. And most of these textual scholars, as we call them, they seem to agree that quarto two has Shakespeare's handwritten manuscript behind it. Okay. We do not have any of Shakespeare's plays in manuscript form. They have just not survived. God knows where they went. Maybe they were just kind of destroyed, fire, water, whatever, or just thrown away without people actually knowing what they were. Who knows? Hmm. So, as far as Hamlet is concerned, quarter two seems to have come from the author's own manuscript, transferred direct into the printing press, printed edition. The third edition comes after Shakespeare's death. Shakespeare's died, and in 1623, almost 20 years down the line, in 1623, the company, the King's Men, say that in Shakespeare's honor, as a tribute, as homage to our playwright, we will bring out his full collected works. Okay, that is called the first folio, Folio. Hmm. And again, folio means the size of the book, and folios were large size. You call them large format books, almost like kind of coffee table books. And I think, I don't know the exact number, but about 20, 30 first folios have survived. They are in various libraries around the world. Okay. Um, and this is a complete works, which is obviously large. It has all the 30 odd plays that at least the company says were Shakespeare's, and it's divided into histories, comedies, tragedies, and last plays. All right. Among them is obviously Hamlet, but this Hamlet, while it has strong similarities with Quarto 2, also has many lines missing in 1623, which Quarto 2 has, and another 100 lines or so, which are new to 1623 first folio and are not there in Quarto 2. Okay, so it's a very complicated process. So therefore, any editor now, any Shakespearean scholar now, who sits down to make a new edition of Hamlet, has to carefully go through three texts that survive and collate. And very often you will therefore have, in fact, why very often? All the time, you're going to have Hamlet texts printed now which are different from each other. Hamlet editions that are now in print, which are different, even in small details, right? For instance, between quarto 2 and folio 1, there are literally hundreds of word differences. Differences of word. One word which is there in quarter 2 is being replaced by another word in first folio. Which one is correct? Now, generally speaking, the Shakespearean scholars tend to think that because this first folio came from the company, this was the book in their possession. And therefore, Hamlet developed over these 20 years in different ways, even after Shakespeare's death. Remember, the play text at that time was bought by the company. The author had no subsequent right in it. So once Shakespeare had got his fee for the play, it was his company's, the Chamberlain's men or the King's men property. And then, if they wanted to, they could do whatever changes they felt like doing in the copy in their possession. So, first folio, coming from the text of Shakespeare that we consider to be the most authentic, genuine, because it is the tribute volume to Shakespeare done by Shakespeare's own friends and company members, in this case, may not be the most authentic Hamlet. It comes a close second. Yes, Shushmita.
Okay, so given how extensive the differences are, I didn't know that there were so many words missing and all. Can we really say that the quality of all these versions are actually isomorphic? Or when we say that, when we talk about what Hamlet is and what Hamlet represents, we only take the best of all the different versions and sort of collate that quality as well.
Yeah. Well, I don't look at it that way because I am not chasing after the most authentic. Suppose I was a director or, as I said, editor over here with Hamlet in front of me. What would I do? As I've told you with Shakuntala, I would take all three,
Well,
I would place them in front of me on my table, and then I would go through it line by line, and I would say, okay, I will take this from here, I will take from that from here for my purposes. Okay, I will delete this entire scene. This scene seems kind of, you know, unnecessary. I have to remember that my audience's attention spans are decreasing day by day as we speak. They are not going to be taking more than 2 hours. Even 2 hours nowadays is too much in the theater. Hmm? So, what am I going to do with a 4 hour play? You understand the problem. This is the director's problem. But the idea is pick and choose, collate, take what is required for your purposes. Now, of course, the scholar has a different responsibility. The scholar has to give you what he or she believes is the best Hamlet. And this is obviously going to be a subjective decision, right? So that's why I'm saying the edition of Hamlet that you have will be different from the one that Audrijas has, will be different from the one that Yash has. Because every editor is, and it's not done randomly or arbitrarily, is thinking very, very carefully. I prefer this reading. I prefer this word. Yes, Audrija.
thank you.
So I wanted to ask that the people who published the first photo, they got it printed.
Yeah.
So they seemingly had the actor who had played Marcellus.
Yes.
So since he was an actor who acted in the original Shakespeare play,
Yeah.
shouldn't he have a copy of the entire script or
No,
manuscript?
no, no,
How
no,
is it
no.
that?
No. They would not do that. They saw through these possibilities, right? This is a grave danger. You'll understand immediately, right? You give every actor the whole script. Array, what are they going to do? Out of 20 actors, one of them is going to be a bad guy. He's going to say, sorry, my mother has died, I'm leaving. Okay. And he's going to take the manuscript, the copy or whatever it is, to the nearest printer and print it. You cannot do anything about it. He'll make more money from that than he would performing for 1 year.
But how would they then understand which line is supposed to come after who?
Every actor got what they were called at that time. The word was part. Every actor gets their parts. That's all they get. But remember, Human beings have phenomenal memories. We tend to forget that. In this day and age, we don't use our memories anymore. But even in your culture, you know, there were people I know for a fact who could just recite. I should mention this right away, is Soumitra Chatterjee.
Yes.
What a memory. Hmm. He could, at his advanced age, he could recount every single line, and he would non-stop go reciting. And sometimes, of course, he would forget. But you know how intelligent he was. He would immediately insert something of his own, and nobody would be able to make out that that was not the original thing. But phenomenal memories are there. Okay, so you would try to, Audrija, you would try to reduce these risks as much as possible by giving everybody just their parts. That's it. Okay, yeah, Yash.
I just wanted to share that I was watching a random interview of Andrew Scott. If any of you have seen Fleabag or Sherlock
Yeah,
Holmes, he plays Moriarty in,
yeah, yeah.
and he was in a Black Mirror episode, and he was told it was insane because no one would tell him what was happening in the scenes that he wasn't in, and nobody was telling him if Miley Cyrus, a big global superstar, was in another episode. And he said, to the point where I got journalists were asking me, so what's happening in the new Black Mirror season? And he's like, I barely know if I'm even in it. And this conversation just reminded me, like, the the grave danger of protecting the how a story is going to run as being a very capital intensive venture even now.
Yeah,
It's interesting to think about the fact that we get
absolutely.
that
No.
much.
The only difference is that now we have completely legally written down confidentiality clauses. In the contract, you are getting it. So if you do anything like that, that's why they don't speak about it, right? You are breaching contract and therefore you'll be sued. So it's all written down in your 20-page contract, right? Okay. So let's then proceed. Have we got the text situation sorted out more or less? I mean, it's much more complicated than that. But usually, what we'll have is each of your editions, if they are kind of scholarly editions or reliable editions, they will give you the variations, at least all that the editor wants to point out to you, the other variations in the annotations and the notes underneath. Hmm. So, in case you think that the other word is better, you are free to choose. You at least know. The whole point is that this is all about knowledge, getting to know as much as possible about Hamlet, the play, or for that matter, any text that we have nowadays. Right now, um, the next thing that I need to explain is that Shakespeare, and by the way, this is not undermining his quality. I've already said that he's using something old. I've said before in one of the earlier classes that remember, he was taking his stuff from all over. Nothing really is, in that sense, original fully in Shakespeare. Hmm. Now, the next thing that we have to think of, consider, is that he was writing in a very popular genre of the Renaissance theatre. That is the revenge tragedy. Hamlet is the best revenge tragedy by far. Okay, next to something like a romantic tragedy like Romeo and Juliet, revenge tragedy was very, extremely popular. And this was actually not even an English invention, because the idea of revenge tragedy goes back to Greek and Roman times. Remember, I talked about Aeschylus's trilogy that survives, which is the Oresteia. Hmm. The Oresteia is the first revenge tragedy. All right. And this is not applicable to Oedipus because there is no sense in that sense of revenge in Oedipus. Hmm. Uh, the uh, the Oresteia, however, is about the family of uh, the entire Agamemnon and then Orestes. That line, each person, each major figure in that trilogy is seeking revenge for injustice done to someone in their family who has been killed or something else has happened. All right. For instance, Agamemnon's wife, Clytemnestra, hmm, in the first part of Aeschylus's Oresteia, uh, is absolutely shattered that her husband, Agamemnon, not only comes back from the war with a mistress, but also during the war has sacrificed their daughter to the gods for divine, kind of some kind of wealth, some kind of benefit that the gods are giving them. Iphigenia is sacrificed. So there is revenge Clytemnestra takes on Agamemnon. Meanwhile, she has taken a lover. Okay, so the two of them come together to kill Agamemnon soon after he returns. Then, in the next play, because of Agamemnon's death, the children want to take revenge on Clytemnestra and Clytemnestra's new husband after Agamemnon dies. So it kind of carries on. And then Orestes is, of course, the son, is hounded by, you've heard the term, the Furies, hmm, uh, who are that concept of nemesis. Remember, we were talking about, I don't think Shongita is here, but hounding, in a sense of divine justice, hounding Orestes for having committed this murder. So what happens is there is an initial crime, someone commits a crime, and that sets off, usually it's a murder, that sets off a chain of revenge, for revenge, for vengeance, on and on and on, until finally it is settled. And this is what's happening in Hamlet. Okay, in a shorter, much shorter scope, because Shakespeare can't write a trilogy. Right? Yes, Shushmita.
So would the Iliad and Odyssey also fall into this category of revenge tragedy?
No, because Iliad and Odyssey are epics. They are huge. Many of these stories, episodes, etc., are in the Iliad and Odyssey. But because by definition you're talking about a form of drama, tragedy is a form of drama, it's the dramatists who are extracting these stories and then making them the focus of their revenge tragedy.
I see.
Okay.
So,
Now the Greeks didn't have a word for it. It was one of those kinds of storylines that they developed. The ancient Romans took this, the revenge tragedy concept, and made it their own. So you have the dramatist by the name of Seneca,
yeah.
Seneca, writing Latin tragedy, also known as Roman tragedy. In every one of his tragedies that have survived, there is revenge. The whole thing is about revenge. And when the French take up tragedy later on, in their tragedies, they are almost exclusively dealing with revenge tragedy, with even classical characters like Phèdre, Hippolytus. Racine writes all these tragedies on classical characters, taking from the classical drama themselves and the French, and developing them in their own way. So that's kind of the revenge tragedy trajectory. But in London also, it was extremely popular. And the Spanish tragedy was a revenge tragedy. The Ur Hamlet was a revenge tragedy. And Shakespeare thought, okay, all you guys think you've been writing great revenge tragedies. Of course, sure, they're good. But I will really give you the revenge tragedy that will outlast everything. Okay. Here, there is also a cultural factor that you must know, that in Christian times, obviously England is Christian now, the revenger, any revenger, any avenger is doomed. It comes with the territory. Why? Can anyone tell me why? Why am I saying Christianity thinks this way?
Because
Because
you,
it says, yes, please go ahead.
no, Masima, go ahead, please.
So it
Oh,
says,
Seema, you're there. I can't see you.
I'm sorry, sir, I'm driving, so
Okay,
I
okay,
don't
go
want.
ahead, go ahead.
Yeah.
If you're driving, you shouldn't be speaking.
I'm caught in a very bad traffic jam, so
Okay, okay,
I
quickly,
was
quickly,
taking the
quickly.
liberty
Don't have
to
an
speak.
accident. Tell me fast.
Yeah. So, sir, it will take somebody of a very super power, abilities to stop that cycle of revenge, avenge, and for him to say no, it stops here. I
Yes,
will not let it go on.
correct. Why? Why is this important for Christianity? One word.
mercy or
Yeah,
something.
well, better than mercy.
What is better than mercy?
Redemption.
Not
Redemption. Redemption.
not redemption, not redemption.
Um,
Before redemption comes something else.
Forgiveness.
Forgiveness is absolutely correct. Christianity is, among other things, one of the fundamental tenets of Christianity is forgive. Forgive them. They know not what they do. Okay. So the Christian English would obviously think that anyone is bent on revenge is going the wrong path. Now, you do what you have to, but you are doomed. Heaven will have no place for you. Okay, so think of that. I mean, obviously, Shakespeare's own audience knows that we know the story, and therefore we also know that Hamlet is going to his doom if if he goes through the same passage that we know the story to contain. If Shakespeare makes something new, innovates, then it's a different matter. We don't know that here. That is the suspense of these plays, right? We talked about this situation before with the other two plays we've dealt with. What is original? What is new? But otherwise, if it's a revenge tragedy, he is going to seek his revenge and he's going to be doomed for it. Yeah. So these are the uh, the background, both in terms of the storylines that were known, as well as the genre, the dramatic genre that was known for what it was worth in the popular mind of Shakespeare's audience at that time. Right. Now, let's talk about the play itself. What is it about? Let me tell you what Laurence Olivier told all his.
I'm going to quote his line that he said at the very big, not him, that
Yeah.
movie that you made us watch. He said,
Yes.
the man who doesn't know how to act, or something like that.
Doesn't?
The man who doesn't know how to act, or something, like doesn't.
Actually, he's a great actor, Hamlet.
No.
But that's a different thing.
No, the Hamlet movie starts with that man. It's about a man who doesn't. I just watched yesterday. I don't know how I'm forgetting.
Exactly.
I shouldn't be an
It begins with a total giveaway. Now, why would you do that? A film in which the producer or Laurence Olivier is saying this movie is about a man who cannot make up his mind.
Cannot make up his mind. And I laughed hearing that, and then I just thought, yes.
Hey, what's your problem? I mean, you were going to tell the entire audience the whole story. You may as well stop the movie there, right? Now, the thing is that actually what the play is about? Hamlet not being... Now, obviously, Olivier is not wrong.
That is one of the things.
That is only one.
Yes,
Okay.
I mean, I think it's much more. It's about a son's, duty or obligation towards his father.
Yeah.
Towards a prince who is, the implement, like the person who's going to be the future king. His obligation to his country,
Yes.
To his nation, to have a rightful king, right? So
Yeah.
I think this notion of Tyrannus, like you described to us, applies to Hamlet's uncle, who's a usurper of the throne.
Yes, of course.
right? So to me, all these things are very much drawn in. And of course, Hamlet is not a hot-headed person who'll just take a hint from a ghost and run and do the deed. He is a sensitive soul. He thinks very deeply. He's conflicted. He probably thinks too much. Maybe by the time he got enough evidence supporting this fact, he should have done something about it, or then not done anything at all. Like he just dilly dallies too much.
Yeah.
So I think those are just about. So that's where I think Olivier is referring to the man who just like doesn't know what to do, that sort of thing. But
Yeah.
the initial portion, I think his conflict is primary because he as a son, what is he to do in this particular situation? His mother has married this man, so in a way he's his stepfather. She seems to be accepting of the reality, so what should he do? So all those sorts of things. I
Yeah.
think they are
Yeah. Yeah. So obviously, this is only one perspective, and it is certainly not necessarily the most important perspective of the play. But remember, this is also important because don't we all know it? We can't make up our minds. Very often we can't. So this is clearly about a person who has doubt, who doesn't know what should he do in my profession, what should I do in my future, what should I do with my love life, Hmm. let alone thinking of killing. Okay, all these are there. Hmm. What am I supposed to be doing? And therefore, I cannot make up my mind. Now, is that a fault in itself? As we can see, the best tragedies are those in which you cannot place guilt on or culpability on the tragic hero because this is a very human characteristic. We are constantly caught in two minds, literally in two minds. And so, what is wrong with that? We really don't know. I wish I had a guru somewhere telling me, okay, you do this. But then, on the other hand, if I was Hamlet and the guru tells me, like the ghost, you do this, I am not going to accept. I am going to, think more. That is a big problem. But also, what's wrong in thinking more? That's what you should be doing. Remember, last time we talked about humanism. Humanism meaning the intellect, think it out carefully, rationalize it as much as possible. Do I believe in ghosts? My father's ghost is telling me that, revenge me, avenge me. How do I know? Okay, tell me something. Why is he so, apart from the fact that he's a university graduate, right? He's clearly very intelligent, therefore rationalist, therefore he should doubt what this ghost thing is all about. Who is this ghost? Why? Where does this ghost come from? But he seems to be talking quite accurately. But still, I doubt it. Right? I need to make my own investigations. But tell me one thing. Another reason why he should be doubting the ghost more. Who can tell me?
maybe it's somebody pretending to be a ghost.
No, 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 no. That's very clear because the ghost can't be so real. The ghost disappears. The
Yes.
ghost appears and disappears.
It's an
Okay.
apparition.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's described as that. I mean, this is a spiritual body who can appear and disappear at will. Okay, so it's not that. And as I said, the culture of that time believed in ghosts. But what is Hamlet a little more worried about that would make him doubt the ghost a little bit more? What possibility do you think?
So how does he know it's his father's ghost only and not
How say that again?
ghost?
How
How does he know that it's his father's ghost only and not something
looks like
else
the
or
father.
someone else?
Looks like the father. Looks like the father is dressed like the father. So that's not the issue.
Dressed.
Sorry.
No, no, it's my son saying something.
Okay. Okay, I'll give you a clue. Again, something related to Christianity. Never forget that Shakespeare's
Right.
people are Christians, majority.
they don't like, there is something about Christianity which says like you're not supposed to believe in like this kind of a other than like a religious, how do I say, like there is something against believing in this
What is that
metaphysical,
something?
yeah, so this there's a word for it, these I'm sorry, it's this thing
No,
that
there is a basic problem here that you have to kind of sort out, which is about, suppose the ghost was
devil.
exactly. Okay, now many, if you believed in Christianity, or if you didn't, whatever, ghosts come from somewhere. Okay, where do they come from? They would come from
Holy
either
Trinity.
heaven or hell or purgatory. If you believed in these concepts, obviously, as a Christian, you probably would. Who's to say that this, my father's ghost, is actually not the devil's doing? This is one of the uppermost things in Hamlet's mind, contributing to the doubt situation. How am I so sure that this is all not a temptation of the devil in order to catch me in his grasp? Got it? Again, this is absolutely human. This is perfectly rational. Everything is kind of, he isn't doing anything wrong over here. It's just that he's carrying on thinking a little too long, right? These are all things that we might have done in the same situation. He has some suspicions about his mother and this guy who he feels is the person who has killed his father. But how does he substantiate this? So the entire delay is actually his exercise in trying to find evidence, legal evidence almost, that will then, and I use the word very carefully, justify what he is prepared to do is to kill. And having killed, he will go not to heaven, because the avenger does not go to heaven. But at least if he is sure that he has done the right thing, his conscience will be clear. So he carries on, and again, this human trait, procrastinating. How many of you procrastinate? I am doing it all the time. I confess. What I can do tomorrow or a week later on, I can wait. I don't have to do it today.
Confess like in front of God.
Sorry?
I mean, confess in front of God.
What in front of God?
Like confess
Yes.
in front of God. Right?
Yes, confess. To what?
I mean, any kind of thing you have done that is not right, something like that.
Oh, you mean afterwards?
Yeah.
Afterwards. But he hasn't done it yet. Right? Hamlet hasn't done anything to confess about. You can have a confession only after you have done something evil, something wrong. According to the Christian construct, you confess to God afterwards. Okay? Not because you have it in your mind. You have to first remember the word act. You have to first act. Then alone you're guilty. You go to a court even today, and somebody tells you that this man, he had in his mind they'll throw you out. This is not a case that can be um, uh, punished or kind of prosecuted, because he hasn't done anything. You can't assume that he had something in his head. We don't read minds yet. So you have to have done this, and that's why before he does it, he has to be sure that he's doing the right thing. And this is not something that is planted by the devil. So doubt, delay, doubt are together, and this whole thing about questioning. questioning. This is humanism. Interrogate, right? Always try to find out the science behind it. Can we prove it? Can we not? Is it empirically, rationally demonstrable? Then only it's okay. We don't believe in anything else. So that's what he's doing. Questioning, questioning, interrogating all the time. He's not getting the answers until it's too late. Yeah.
So I think this really shows how meaning how thoughtful Hamlet was, right?
Mhm.
For one thing, in given how much devil is such a central, anti-hero in Christian sort of teaching,
Hmm.
the fact that and he sees ghosts and Denmark. He is a Catholic. He is a prince of a Catholic kingdom. Denmark is still a Catholic kingdom, and they have all sorts of the thing that I was trying to think. I still can't figure it out, but it's that they have these whole sorts of thing against witches. Why did they prosecute and they go after witches? Because they thought they were like evil. There's an evil spirit. There's a Holy Spirit, Holy Ghost, and there's that opposite of that.
Hmm.
And the fact that Hamlet, even for a moment, accepts or concedes that there could be some truth to it, that itself shows how balanced and empirically sort of rooted he was, or at least he was trying to do the right thing, right?
Yeah.
He didn't
Yeah.
run away from the ghost thinking he's devil,
No.
and he didn't like sort of run a sword through his uncle on the first excuse he got, right? So I think that sort of really makes him looking better.
Yeah.
And of course,
Yeah.
his misfortune is that by the time he came to know the complete truth, it was already too late. So,
Yeah. 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 Right. So essentially, this is at the core of Hamlet's dilemma. The delay, therefore, stemming out of this dilemma and carrying on interrogating, questioning in his quest, literally the word quest, to find out the truth. So it's almost kind of, you could even call this a legal drama, of course, without any kind of courtroom scenario. But that's what he's after. And he is always, constantly, we must realize this. He's a young man, he's an idealistic young man, he's highly educated, highly intelligent. By the way, how old is he?
right out of university. So back then, I don't know what it was.
Yeah, actually, there's a clue towards the end of the play. He's about 30.
Really?
Yeah, he's more than out of the university.
Okay.
Hmm. So he's mature, yet he's not, foolhardy young that he would do something. Because that's why he's thinking.
Yeah, that
That's what
actually
his
makes sense.
that's what his academic training has given him. So we have to completely sympathize and appreciate the nature of his plight. And at the same time, you have to think about certain things that he's doing that perhaps you would not want to do. What are some of the things that you feel that Hamlet did that you wouldn't do, that you may not do?
In trying to be a good son to his father, he forgot that he has a mother too.
Yes, but he is highly respectful to his mom. All the time, he's kind of trying to protect her. He does believe that he seduced his mother. I mean, the uncle seduced the mother. It was not so much her fault. So, to that
Um,
extent, I mean, relatively speaking, she seems to be, as far as he's concerned, less guilty, if at all. I mean, maybe he's thinking that she is guiltless.
when we our children, uh, beyond respecting and loving us,
Hmm.
we would want them to have a little faith in us. We are human
Yeah.
as parents, but we do expect that, of course, they understand the mistake. We can make mistakes, but
Hmm.
they should also understand that after a certain sort of experience, if the decisions we are taking uh, do not sit well with them, they have to try to have a little faith, a blind little blind faith in our
Yes.
decisions. If
Yes.
Gertrude has taken a decision to be with another man, she might have some reasons
Yeah.
for it,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. But I don't think he is much concerned about that aspect. He is much more concerned about the simple matter of assassination. Hmm. And separating the assassin from the assassin's wife, who happens to be his mother. In fact, I would say he's as devoted a son as you can get, whereas anybody else would have said that she's an accomplice. Yeah. Uh,
Yes.
but he is trying to, defend her, justify her as much as possible, let her off the hook. It's pretty much reaches that state in the play. Not her. So it is not so much that it's not this issue I'm thinking of.
I
I'm
think
thinking of
Ophelia
something else. Sorry, Shushmita?
is, I don't know what exactly was the nature of his relationship with Ophelia, that
Yeah,
she exists. It's a storyline, but it's never fleshed out, right? I
yeah,
mean, so it's hard to say how much, to what extent he betrayed her. So
yeah.
that's why I didn't like, I don't know.
No, I think it's a clear case of betrayal. I think definitely from what you get from Ophelia's lines,
Yeah,
there certainly seems to be some kind of relationship to
right.
have existed there, and he is, I would say, excessively cruel to
Yes,
her.
yes.
Can you defend him? Is there any way that you can say that maybe he is saying this deliberately?
No, that actually is, it's really not. So actually, that's what I was thinking. Maybe there is a subplot that I missed, which sort of justifies a portion of his treatment of Ophelia. But clearly, there's a relation. The way Ophelia says and her brothers react, like it's this is something there. So, but yeah, but exactly, if we just literally take his behavior and his actions towards her, I think she's clearly the person who was like a completely a roadside kill, like she didn't do anything to deserve what happened to her.
Except that there is a small part in the play where, again, we have to give Hamlet the benefit of the doubt, where he in fact suspects that Ophelia has been planted by her father and therefore also Claudius to, in a sense, spy on him. Hmm. Um,
I don't remember that thing.
yeah,
Okay.
that is happening in, well, actually, I don't have the exact passage out here to take me some time to locate. Yes, Yash, you were saying
No,
something?
about this, yeah, there's the sense that Hamlet decides to play mad,
Yeah,
and that's
that's
why
coming a
also,
little later on. So what happens is, if you
but his
you have to
paranoia.
follow, sorry, follow Act Two carefully, follow Ophelia's first appearances, and you will see that Hamlet senses, very often this is apparent in the film versions because they put it more explicitly. You can see things on stage or on screen, which you won't be able to read because it's maybe in a tiny little stage direction or the director has interpreted it that way, which is that there is, in fact, a stage direction that Polonius and the king are hiding behind, step behind, let us watch what he does. Hmm. Because there are suspicions that he's a little, you know, loony or whatever. Okay. So Polonius, being the minister, has told the king that let's see what he does. And many directors use this opportunity to get Hamlet on this frame or on stage and notice something that is um, happening behind the screen or behind the curtain, a movement or something like that. While Ophelia is in front, obviously talking to him, and immediately he kind of is wary. She is a spy. She has been planted, and therefore he again might be putting on an act. All right, to feed Polonius and Claudius that he is an absolute loony, case for the loony bin. So there's no danger that can come from him, but at the same time, we must kind of be careful. So remember, Hamlet is also a good actor. He has often, in fact, the word act in this play is deliberately Shakespeare is punning because it means to perform the action, which Hamlet is not doing, the action of killing his father's killer. He is not doing that. He's not getting the requisite revenge. This act, that sense of act, and the other is play acting, enacting madness, play acting, all kinds of things, because he's doing that. He's even director, right, for that mousetrap play within the play. He's playing the director's role, telling them what to do so that I can get some more proof just watching their reactions to this play that you're enacting. What happens when they see a situation in the dumb show, in the play within the play, where it's virtually ditto to what Claudius did to Hamlet Sr., pouring poison into his ears. And how would he react at that moment? How would, that is to say, Claudius and Gertrude react? That is what Hamlet is watching during that sequence. Okay, but what I'm saying is that let's be a little more careful without, maybe let's assume that he really loves Ophelia, completely loves Ophelia. But this slight doubt caused this hesitation at that first meeting, that what is going on behind the screen? Why? I mean, I sense that they are watching me. Therefore, I should put on an act. I should pretend. And then he might also be thinking that what if I die in the commission of this act, this action? I could die. Maybe I will die because once I kill him, surely somebody's going to kill me. Should I put Ophelia through this? This is another way of looking at it. Better to pretend that I'm absolutely crazy right now. Better to say that, just get lost, Ophelia. I don't want to have anything to do with you. And not let on that I truly love her. Because remember, when he comes back and she's dead, he really gets extremely upset. How dare you, Laertes, her brother, you think you're the only one who loved her? Why would you want to pick a duel at that stage? Yeah. So there are ways of defending Hamlet, and of course, because it is so open, you don't have to take this route in characterizing him. But yes, I would also think that it is cruel not to have maybe confided in her.
Yes. So that would be cruelty, right? Like to keep her completely in the dark and then play psychological game with her of casting her aside, whatever. It would be very, very cruel.
Yeah. So there we might have taken a different course of action. He didn't. Again, who's to say that she may not have told her father whatever he confided in her? She is a very devoted daughter.
Yes, there's mention. Like
so how many risks is he going to take? It's too much a risk to take. So it's a very difficult decision for him to make. The entire play also, I've been harping about the fact that it's, and I told you that the Branagh version is the full text, 4 hours long. Some critics have said that this is because Shakespeare has constructed it loosely. Right. But I don't believe that's true. I think what he has done is deliberately, consciously, he has protracted the play so that you get a sense of delay. Delayed action, constant procrastination. Other things are happening in the course of the play itself. Other stories are getting in the way. all kinds of other things. So you are being prepped, primed for this entire thing about delay. This theme of delay is happening in the play itself that Shakespeare has constructed consciously so that you are getting the sense of, come on, Hamlet, get on with it. But
Completely
at the same time, you are entertained by each one of those subplots and other scenes that Shakespeare has thrown in. Yeah. You are forgetting about the real purpose, which Hamlet himself is also forgetting, right? So Shakespeare is putting you through the same thing. Yes, there was a couple of hands raised. Yash had his hand raised, but then withdrew it. He's becoming like Hamlet.
Sir, I think this was a brilliant take on it. When I read the text, also I mean preparing for class, I was really annoyed by the unnecessary. I thought this script could have been tightened and like just get going. But
Yeah.
now thinking on what you just said, it really makes you exasperated for waiting for that. It makes you feel the procrastination of Hamlet, delay that man who can't make up his mind that much more. So this makes complete sense now, I think.
No, I haven't discovered this. Okay, famous critic now. I don't remember who it was. Hamlet has been written about so exhaustively, so thoroughly. I think I told you that every day somebody writes a new essay on Hamlet, and in every language in the world, right? The Germans think that Shakespeare is a German dramatist. Okay, forget the English. They know nothing about their own master playwright. We in Germany revere him, respect him, adore him, etc. We know everything that there is to know about Shakespeare. They absolutely hero worship Shakespeare. So across the world, there are things being written about Hamlet all the time. So pretty much everything has been explored as far as Hamlet is concerned. Yeah, Yash?
This is not just related to Hamlet, but a lot of Shakespeare's plays. In the sense where Hamlet is questioning, but in that sleep, what dreams may come, essentially questioning if heaven exists or the afterlife exists. How did that roll with the authorities? Because that's, it's really kissing the edge of probing.
Okay, there's another. You're talking about to be or not to be.
Yeah, but not necessarily, not specific to that speech or to Hamlet itself, but the what I mean is texts that are actively, playing with the idea of atheism, or having characters who are questioning, even characters shown as mad or manic, questioning the eternal meaning of all things.
Yeah.
How did that? Yeah.
Well, Shakespeare will certainly not go out on a limb and espouse any kind of atheism or agnosticism. No, he can't do that because he's almost virtually unwritten, sworn allegiance to the monarchy, which is a Christian monarchy. You can't do that. And the rules at that time were that you would not even swear in vain. Right? So no references to any cursing, any oath taking on stage, right? Forbidden. Hence, I mean, you couldn't even say by the Virgin Mary, by Mary. You couldn't say that. What would you say? English literature students would know that. You would say Mary. Okay, so there's a lot of Marry, Mary. You'll find that in Shakespeare lots of times.
Oh, really? It's on purpose? It's not like a...
It's what we call a euphemism.
Okay, I thought that's how they pronounced, or that's
no,
how...
No.
It was...
Is there any reference to God by name? You can't do it.
But they did say Jesus, like there are plays in...
they have euphemisms.
Jesus, right?
They have euphemisms, but no swearing. That would be immediately deleted.
But it's one thing to...
no, that's just a small thing that I'm...
No, I understand. Yeah. It's emblematic of a greater...
the kind of norms of that kind, which he would not break. He could not break. All right. Now here, however, he is a humanist. He is showing Hamlet as a humanist, right? That is to say, a man who is questioning everything, correct? And therefore, also, while maybe not going to the same extent as Marlowe, he is at the same time having his cake and eating it too, just like Marlowe did in his own way. Marlowe is showing you what goes wrong if you make a pact with the devil. And why did you make that pact? Because you, a scientist or a doctor or whatever, are investigating.
Yeah.
Right? You didn't believe in the truth, in the true God, in God who is true. Okay. Here, Shakespeare is doing a similar thing. He's obviously not going to repeat what somebody else has done already. He is saying that, okay, what is happening in the afterlife? Why should I take this step? By the way, in To Be or Not to Be, what is he actually contemplating?
Whether he should kill himself.
Suicide. And all of you know that in Christianity, and certainly in Catholic terms, what?
It's a sin.
You cannot commit suicide. You're going straight to hell. Huh? You're taking the metro ticket to hell. Anything faster than that in Calcutta? I don't know. Whatever. The very fact of one of the reasons why this soliloquy is so highly rated is that it is actually broaching the subject of something that is anti-Christian. And he is actually considering it to quite
kissing the edge of it, yeah.
Right, up to a certain point, and then retracting and saying that no, maybe not. Conscience doth make cowards of us all. He's not saying I'm not going to do it because I'm a believing Christian. He's saying that conscience will make cowards of us all. I won't do it because of my conscience. He could also be scared because he doesn't know what's going to happen over there. In that sense, it's agnostic. But it's very openly worded. Shakespeare will not get arrested. But at the same time, he's giving his entire audience that, look, we are humanists. We believe in the freedom of the human mind to examine, to explore, to suggest everything, right? And then we take our own choices. Not once is he mentioning God over here. Not once is he mentioning that he's going to be redeemed regardless, because by the way, he knows, just like the Elizabethans did, or the Jacobeans did, that you kill in revenge, you are also going straight to hell. He has a double ticket to hell. If he commits suicide, straight there. If he kills in terms of revenge, based on revenge, he's also going straight there. So, what's the point in thinking of that born from where nobody returns?
He's caught in a rock and a hard place, clearly. Whichever way, it's his. So this is also a form of destiny, or there was a word you used in our initial conversation.
Yeah, actually, not destiny, but the sense of providence. I'm using the term that is applied to Hamlet in Hamlet studies here. Providence plays quite a bit of a role in Hamlet.
Yes.
It's almost kind of, it's almost fated, but you cannot have, by the way, you cannot have fate, Yash, in a Christian society. Fate doesn't exist. God exists. Right? It's not Greek times, it's not Indian.
It's pagan to have fate.
Sorry?
It's pagan, the concept of fate. You're saying.
Yeah. But over here, you're getting that sense, don't you? That it's just kind of inexorably he is being pushed.
What I want.
Fate.
Sorry, Odrija, you had something that you wanted to say? No? Okay, I thought yeah. Go ahead, Shushmita.
No, I was saying the whole situation he finds himself in. The entire story of Hamlet is a man who is in the wrong situation. The circumstance is not of his making. It was made for him, and because he's the son and the heir, he has been put in as the middle center of the action, right? And he has to do something, even if he doesn't want. One way or another, he has to resolve. So I don't see how you can escape the hand of fate in the interpretation of the context of Hamlet.
Yeah. And the last point that I would like to make on this play, it's a very important one, is again toss it out to you. How many of you have felt that your family situation has is pushing you somewhere, has pushed you somewhere. You want to back out of it, you want to leave it, but it's kind of really hounding you down. And don't we all feel the need for revenge? We want to, right? I want to, I still have a sense of revenge about something that happened in my life, which I haven't been able to kind of put aside. And I'm not a very kind of violent character or something like that. But some things happen to us that you feel that why is this happening? There must be a way to get back, right? And very often this is family related. Someone in the family has either done something to you which you just cannot tolerate, accept. You have two options: walk away, go to some other country or somewhere where just this doesn't arise. You don't meet them anymore, or over here, face it and do something about it so that your conscience is tests. Or it could be someone has done something from outside. In the same way, you might seek revenge for that particular act which you feel was completely unnecessary, was unjust, was unfair. So what do? Christianity, of course, would tell you forgive and forget.
And faith
Let
in
it
God.
go. But we don't. We are human beings. We very often don't think that way. We let it fester. Very often we let it fester. And we
sometimes we cannot forgive.
wait for our turn to, turn the screw. If we possibly get a chance, we'll do it. Yes, yeah.
Two thoughts. One, I just want to return to the atheism thing really quick, because what's for instance, with Mad Tom, and the sense that Lear, with its postmodern adaptations as a completely nihilistic play in a sense, and even in Lear there's this sense of fate smiting you. I guess what I'm asking is, so because Shakespeare wasn't just a writer who was skirting around saying things openly, he was in fact directly patronized by the throne. Does that implicate the kind of liberalism of the monarchs he was writing under? Were they? We know that they came after the purists, the Puritans. But is it fair to say that they were perhaps more liberal?
Who came after the Puritans?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm mixing up timeline. They came before.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but were they more liberal than I don't know than others, than their predecessors?
Yeah. To a certain extent, I mean, even between, let's say, Queen Elizabeth and King James, let's not talk about Charles because Shakespeare was gone. You would feel that James was more liberal than Elizabeth. Elizabeth had certain puritanical streaks in her. Like I said, she didn't believe in entertainment too much, etc. That kind of puritanical streak. Whereas James would probably have afforded Shakespeare much greater license to, even if he said something offensive, which might have been taken to be offensive by others, James would have probably said, oh, no, this is not offensive at all. So there is a lot of subjectivity over here, even between monarchs.
And is it motivated by commerce?
The author has to be very shrewd and canny. How much can I push without my head being impaled on the Tower of London? That was a favorite practice, by the way. Yeah.
But was it motivated by commerce?
What?
In that it seems like, in my head, Shakespeare's troupe is one of the OTT platforms of his zamana. So it's making real money to the patrons who are paying for, who are invested in it, who are the major shareholders in it. And was that liberalism part of, this has nothing to do, I mean, I apologize, it's a little bit of a digression, but it's part of deconstructing the myth and the genius of Shakespeare, right? He's clearly also a product of his time.
Yeah.
So you find yourself wondering whether King James's liberalism was part of his own education, or also motivated by commerce? Because, like you said, it paid
Oh
to be
no, James,
Shakespeare's
look,
patron.
James doesn't stand to gain any money. James doesn't. What money comes in, the king's men, the company takes. James has lots of gold and precious jewels and all that to last him several lifetimes. He is not getting any money. Let me put it in another way for you, Yash, is that if Shakespeare would have been even more outspoken, forthright, he would have been even more popular. Okay.
But then what motivates the king's
the
patron?
author has to always tread this fine line and has to find out for himself where is this fine line shifting, let's say, between Elizabeth and James. How much can I say without actually being caught and put into the lockup? This is the artist's own problem, even today. Okay, they have to figure out for themselves how much they can speak. And if I want to be completely honest, if I want to say whatever I feel like, then I should be ready to face the consequences. So most artists wouldn't do that, but most great artists will always find a way out, negotiate the situation, right? I mean, this may not be, why not? In British times in India, all right, so many plays. There was a performance control act that the British established. I'm sure you all know that in 1876. The act came into being simply because they were already, the British were very worried because there were lots of very agitation, propaganda kind of plays taking place, like Neil Dorpo, which is showing how the British oppress, tyrannically, despotically oppress indigo planters. And so the British formulate these rules, okay, regulations. Everything has to be censored, just straight out of their own system, actually. Everything has to be censored, passed, and only then can you do it. And what do the Indian playwrights do? They find a way out. They are going to be talking patriotism, nationalism, right? How do they do this? They'll go to history, they'll go to mythology, right? They will do a play like Kicha Prabad. And when the British will come and say, hey, what is going on in this play? And then you will tell them, oh, this is our religious mythology, sir. This is a part of our story. I mean, this is Kichak. He's a devil king. And then there is, these our gods and goddesses. We have to worship our gods and goddesses. And the British plummocks will go away. Right? But we know that Kichak is British ruler. Right? The same thing happens with, let's say, D.L. Roy is doing his historical plays, and he shows a tyrant in the play, and the British come along and say, okay, what is going on over here? And then D.L. Roy and the company will say, but this is our history. These are the tussle between the Mughals and the Rajputs, and so we are just depicting that. And we can't have any problem with that, sir.